Great, thanks, Jeff. It's great to be with everybody today. I want to tell you a little bit about Mount Vernon and get to set the stage for our experience here. So, Mount Vernon is the home of George Washington. We're located in Virginia, just south of Washington D.C. We're not a government-funded institution. We're privately owned and operated by the Mount Vernon Lays Association, which is the oldest historic preservation association in America. And in a normal year, we'd welcome 1.1 million guests annually. A lot of school bus tours coming to DC, a lot of family vacations, people on the Great American Road Trip coming to see us. And we have a 384-acre estate with 26 historic structures, gardens, tombs, a working farm, a museum, library, distillery, and a gristmill. So there's a lot of different activities that you can do while you're here, and the average guest with us spends anywhere between 3 and 4 hours of their day with us. And so it's a very large estate, and there's a lot to see and do, but the places of which we can staff actual interpretation staff members is very minimal. And so that's really kind of the value of the audio tour, and what it can really provide is I now have the ability to interpret the entire estate, no matter whether I have the staff in a particular location or not. We had a previous audio tour at Mount Vernon. We had a lot of challenges with it. It was I'm a little jealous of the devices Mark had. Maybe it's because he was in California and had ready access to better technology out there, but ours were big and bulky. I equate them to a big 1980s cell phone, and on top of that, we offered several different types of tours, and this made it really confusing for guests because they would have to prefix a number before the number stop at the location where they were, and as a result, they had to keep this corresponding additional piece of paper with them throughout the entire experience, and we just saw nothing but negative reviews on that terrible system for them. And so, we knew that that's something that we really wanted to solve for. On top of that, we had no rights to edit or manage our tour, and even though you would think that the history on George Washington is solid and there's never anything that would change there, and in all actuality, there's stuff that's changing all the time, whether it be about George Washington or the enslaved population at Mount Vernon or other parts of his life. And so this ability to edit and manage the tour on our own was something we were interested too. On top of that, we operate an estate that had with buildings that are over 300 years old, and so they need maintenance. And that's going to cause disruption to audio tour paths, and sometimes you have to change the way where things are. And so, and there's a need for guests to be able to ask why as well. And so, there really, with the previous tour, there was no way to manage any of those types of preservation disruptions. So, with this new goal, the new audio tour program, we had a goal to create we wanted a more compact, modern device. Remember, people are spending 3 to 4 hours with us, so carrying around a big old brick is not of high interest to them. We wanted it to be easy to use. We've already been a little hit with some negative reviews on the number system, and so we wanted something that was kind of more of a point and play. And we wanted to be able to self-produce our own content, and more importantly, we also wanted to be able to support multiple languages, as we do get a lot of international visitors to the Washington, D.C. area. So one of the great things about building out our new tour really was the ability to do it in multiple phases. Previously, with a number tour system, I would have to update printed maps and reproduce materials every time we wanted to add a new stop. But with a point and shoot type of system that the Guide ID system is, we've been able to roll out ours in different phases. So we have a completed phase 1, which is all of our historic area. In the next couple of days, we are going to be launching our phase 2, which is our farm. And then a museum will be our last phase, and that's because we are in the process of looking to redo that space, and so the interpretation is going to change. And so the great thing about kind of that multi-phase approach is that, I can stand up items as I want. In fact, we're still working on the farm tour right now. I've got four of the 7 stops done. We're going to put those 4 out and play already, and the other 3 will be coming in a few days, and the guests don't know the difference. But with our current tour, it's 53 stops. It's over 4 hours of audio content, and each stop has 1 to 3 minutes of narration with bonus tracks. So we have an A track, which is more of a biographical story. It might be a story about someone who was enslaved here at Mount Vernon. It might be a story about George Washington during the war. And we have our C track, which is our curatorial highlights. So for those guests that are looking for just to elevate it a little bit further, you can hear from Mount Vernon experts who are not normally available for interpretation. It is a point and listen, so the podcatcher works in that it is an infrared beam that you point at a tile, which we affix on our existing interpretive signs. And it's available. Our tour is available in English, Spanish, French, Chinese, and German, which are our top languages, and we can have the ability to continue to add additions onto that. Audio production. So as I mentioned, we really wanted to have a lot more control over this. So ours is what we call a podcast conversational style. It's like you're going to Mount Vernon with your 2 best friends who know a lot about the estate. We did all the scripting in-house, but we outsourced a lot of the narration, and actually we did it all on Fiverr, which is a freelance service. We have 2 main narrators that we work with frequently on them, but we were able to also supplement with over 40 different voice actors as well. We do on-site recording for our Mount Vernon team, so our curators and our architectural and archaeology teams, they get into the studio at Mount Vernon and record that. But we do all the editing in-house, and for the foreign languages, we do move away from the podcast conversational style, and we go with a single narrator, just and a more simplified script, because most foreign visitors, there's a need to supplement it with additional information, as they may not be as familiar with the stories of America. And so with it, I'd like to kind of just play for you an example of what this sounds like.
It's pretty quiet in here.
You're right. During the day, this space was nearly empty, since most enslaved men were out working from dawn till dusk. Only those too young, too old, or too sick to work might be here during the day. But after sunset, this empty space would quickly grow crowded with 10 to 20 men of varying ages returning to rest.
Would they have all been single men?
When this building was built in the early 1790s, the majority of Virginia's enslaved population lived in single or double family cabins. But at Mount Vernon, this barrack-style bunk room was practical because many of the enslaved adults here at Mansion House Farm were men who were either single or had jobs that required them to live apart 6 days a week from their families living on outlying farms.
So you can see with that, the conversational style, the back and forth. It also we're using sound effects and the ability to kind of bring that space to life. It's normally just a very dormant space with items in the room to do interpretation. Then it's really up to the guest's imagination to fill that space. But with the audio tour, we're able to do that for them. The other thing that we were able to do is to take a look at our pricing. So when we initially released it, it was a paid add-on. It was not available for groups, which made up a third of our visits, and it was $7 per unit. In kind of looking at 2020, we decided that we wanted to include it with admission, and we made it available for everyone, including groups. It's a pickup as you go, and we with this too, it's also allowed us to increase the emission price. And you can kind of see in the chart here where, in a normal year we had a little bit of a pickup, but already, this is ramped up and the usage of it has greatly increased. During COVID, there was a lot, like Mark, there were a lot of challenges with this. We thought that these devices would be a real problem, but we saw similar results to Mark in that a lot of more people did prefer the device versus their own. Guide ID did release a bring your own device, which was a QR code that you could scan and pull up a web version of the audio tour. And so what our team did is we actually packaged it all up into this plastic bag here with a sanitizing wipe and the QR code. So the guests coming to Mount Vernon during that period could essentially determine whether they wanted to use their own device or whether they wanted to open up the own device. And we also provided the cleaning elements. On top of this, we did proactive and visible sanitation of the devices too. So guests saw, when we were returning them, that we were cleaning them, and we made sure that was very evident in our plan. Probably the greatest advantage for Mount Vernon really is the preservation, and this kind of shows 3 areas of which we've deployed this. So, like I mentioned, with a dial-up number tour, I might have to reprint a map, but now I have the ability to just make it a seamless part of the experience. And you'll see these little green easels in front of our North Garden house and in front of the mansion when we had scaffolding a few years ago. And with those, they have one of the podcatchers on it, and the guests can go up there, they can scan it, and they can learn what's going on while they're seeing the work in action. Not that our archaeology team, our historic preservation team, doesn't like talking with guests, but sometimes guests, don't want to bother those individuals, but they still want to know what's going on. And so this really does provide a lot of advantage. Plus, it gives you an opportunity to talk to someone at Mount Vernon or hear from someone at Mount Vernon that you wouldn't normally hear. And so here's a sample of how we're using that.
Hi, I'm Thomas Reinhardt, Director of Architecture at Mount Vernon. Our 18th century structures are some of the most important objects in Mount Vernon's collections. But unlike original Washington furniture or clothing, they can't be protected in a museum environment. They therefore must be kept weather-tight. So the preservation team is vigilant in maintaining their outer envelopes, including roofs and siding. While the exterior of the mansion might appear to be made of stone, it's actually wood that has been worked to achieve the look of stone blocks through beveling of the siding boards, a process called rustication. This illusion is made even more convincing by throwing sand onto wet paint to create a rough texture like stone. Scaffolding has been erected along the west elevation of the mansion to allow Mount Vernon's preservation staff to carry out a restoration of the west front.
And so here with that, you can hear from Tom Reinhardt, our Director of Architecture at the time, to be able to learn more about that process. So even if you come at a different phase of the process, you'll know exactly what is going on. Probably another great thing really about this is the analytics, and Mark alluded to much of this. You would expect to be able to see total daily tours and the audio tracks played, but we get a lot of additional data beyond this too, including length of visit, order of the visit, which spot they go to first, which is not a prescribed path at Mount Vernon, dwell time within certain areas, and then even engagement post-visit. And this has really unlocked a tremendous amount of data that we have not had, and really by offering the tour to all the guests that can come, it even makes it more accurate. So we get a better sense of throughout the year of what that really looks like. So Jeff, I'll turn back to you.